Good morning, Breakfast Club family. This is Mark Stevens, your host, Joe Shoup. Welcome to the Breakfast Club. Welcome our new people and those that continue to come. Welcome you also. Got some great information for you today. We're going to get right into it. So, Joe, how you doing? And let's go.
Good morning, Mark. I'm doing phenomenal. How about you?
I am doing phenomenal myself.
All righty. Things are good on this end. Things are looking very positive for the future. As you know, of course, we're about to start a campaign in the next week. This is the time of year, people, to get going. But anyway, welcome everybody as well. And today we're gonna cover something extremely important that most people really don't even understand, including uplines. I know this continues to happen with people doing three-way calls, director calls, and you know, Mark, it wasn't until you and I called it a director call that people started calling it a director call, started realizing what it was really supposed to be, but I don't see that they have it right yet. And we're going to talk about this today because this information doesn't come just from, you know, out of thin air. These are principles, the things we teach in the class, the things we teach here at the Breakfast Club about talking to people and how to do a campaign. These are all principles that have been followed by professional people for years. And of course, little things change, you tweak and you do things. But the basic structure of running a business, the basic structure of communicating with people has been the same for a long time. It's just that most people don't follow it or they don't know. And when they do, they slide back into old ways. So we're getting now, Mark, into the, let's call it recruiting season. This is when people are starting to think about vacation is over. We're getting back to business. And even though we've worked through the summer, this is the time of year that people start to listen, start looking at a change in their life. And we're looking forward to that change. I know Mark is having great success with his marketing campaigns. We have the two new funnels that are making a tremendous impact on people because they're short to the point, just to see if we have an interested party. And that's our job, is to find an interested party. And you go through column lists, groups of people you know, people you don't know. And you try to find a person, one at a time, that is interested in managing a business from home. Offer them your opportunity and say, this is what I have to offer. Is there a match? That brings us down to deciding and distinguishing between those who are interested in your company and those who are not. And so if you noticed the email that went out, it talked about the cardinal rules of a director call. Now let's make it a little simpler. It's the cardinal rules of negotiating. Now let's just relate that a little bit to the three-way call. You've done some work. You've found an interested party. And now you're going to introduce them to someone who you are hoping knows how to do their job and directs that person to registering with our company. Now, keep this in mind. Not everybody should be directed to registration. And that's one of the rules we're going to talk about today. Not everyone is a candidate for our company. And therefore, just because you have a three-way and you're introducing somebody, it doesn't mean that they should be registered with our company. Now, I believe everyone should have a free account. But we get on a call like that, we should not be trying to convince the prospect. Let me say it again. We should not be trying to convince the prospect to work with us, be with us, open an account with us. Our job is to give them facts, and our job is to find out, is this the right person for our company? Now, as I said, I believe that everybody ought to have a free account and everybody ought to start saving gold. But that's not what we're looking for in an interview. We're looking for the person who wants to manage a business from home, and we want to find out if we have a connection. Do we have a match? That's what we need to be looking for. So let's cover these cardinal rules of, let's call it a three-way call. But truthfully, it's the cardinal rules of negotiating. You are in a negotiation here as a director. You may not have ever looked at it like that, and maybe anybody ever doing one for you has never looked at it like that. But the truth is, a negotiation is when you and another person, or maybe a group, are trying to determine whether or not you're right for each other. It's not a tricky type of dialogue that convinces someone to be with you. That's not what a negotiation is. It's trying to determine, is this good for you and is this good for me? Negotiations fail if a party walks away and says, I didn't get what I wanted. They did something, they said something, I shouldn't have done that. Many times when people are negotiating prices, goods and services, contracts, many times people walk away with the feeling of they shouldn't have. And that negotiation, therefore, has failed. So let's take a look at this. Cardinal rules of, again, let's call it the three-way call or the director call. Know your goals, your must-haves. We say it again. Know your must-haves. In other words, you must have certain things in this dialogue as the director. You must have those certain things in order to move forward, in order to direct them to a call. Once again, we're not taking everybody. You shouldn't be. But you have to know your must-haves. What are they? Well, I know this from our experience, learning how to do a director call from way back of 20 years. Those must-haves are the following. You have to know what the prospect knows. You must have that information. So when you're introduced and you're the director, or you introduce someone to a director, that director has to know what the prospect already knows. So that's the first thing you have to have. The second thing is they have to know what the prospect does prior to this, not including this. What does that prospect do? And you'll see that when we go over a little bit of how that call should go. So you have to find out or know what the prospect does. The next thing you have to know is, what does that prospect see in the future? What do they see that lies ahead? They're trying to determine who this person is, right? These three things are critical to understand for a director. And the next part of that, where you explain getting paid, everybody wants to know two things. What is it that you want me to do, and how much are you going to pay me to do it? Right? That's what we all want to know when we're going to an opportunity, a job, anywhere where you're going to exchange time for money. You need to know, what is it that I need to do, and how much will I get paid to do it? They're critical things. And that being the case, you need to know, will that prospect follow? Will they follow the plan that you have in place, or the company has in place? In our case, it's us, what we have put in place for an individual to join us in this venture. Will they follow? And there's a question. And you'll see that when we go down to the actual dialogue for the director. So those four things are critical in the knowing your must-haves. You must have those four pieces of information. Now, the other thing that the second rule here is you have to be willing to walk away from the table. In other words, when you discover this isn't the right person, and we all know some of the dialogue that has taken place or that can take place, in our case, has taken place, and we know this isn't the right person. The problem is you have to know not only that you have to walk away, but how to walk away. No one will ever believe that you have any must-haves if you don't have the ability to walk away. No one is going to know that. You're not going to have that in your mind. When you discover the must-haves in your conversation, you will be more comfortable. You will know the direction you're going in. You will know what direction you're taking your prospect in. This is not a time for you to decide that you're going to convince people to be with your company and say all the right things to make them say, oh, I think this is lovely and wonderful. Now, if you want to operate that way, that's okay, because guess what? Most of the people I know, not only in this company, but in the industry, operate that way on a three-way. They take time in the beginning to edify not only the director when they're introducing them, but they turn around and edify the person on the other end of the phone. I mean, that might sound right to you, and how nice and wonderful it is to say how wonderful the upline is, and they're just great, and they've been around, and they do all this. There's nothing wrong with a little edification, but to spend minutes, valuable time on the phone, telling the credentials. What if the next director you have doesn't have those credentials? Do you make it up? Do you say how wonderful they are when they're not? There's no need to do that. It is old school. It's been taught like that for years and years and years. And it's really old school. Everybody gets tongue-tied with that because they sometimes know what they're saying isn't even true. A brand new person could do a director call if they knew what they were doing, if they were trained properly. When you agree, Mark, we could take somebody within 2 weeks. We could have them doing a director call where you or I could introduce this other person as the director of the call. If they followed our plan, followed the sequence, followed those rules, they could do one. How would we possibly edify a brand new person? Somebody that's even been in for a month. How would they do a three-way call if we're sitting there trying all this edification?
Can't do it, John.
It's impossible. It's wrong teaching. I know it's been taught for years, but it's wrong teaching. And here's cardinal rule number 3. Never celebrate until you have what you want in that particular three-way. In other words, don't get so excited because you're going to three-way somebody into a director. You may find out during that call because you didn't spend a whole lot of time with the prospect, and really you shouldn't. The process should be you introduce a prospect to some information and then bring them to a three-way. You should not be having director dialogue. You shouldn't be finding out about their family. You shouldn't be finding out what they do on a lengthy basis. Yes, you can ask them before you introduce them to the director to find out if you really need to move them forward. But there shouldn't be any dialogue about families, friends. I live there too. I used to be there. None of that should be happening. It's been taught for centuries. So it seems a long time that that's what you do. It is not what you do. That's not how you operate a business. And if you want to change things, I mean, look, take a look at the statistics in the industry. 95% of the people aren't making the money they want to make. Is something wrong? This is part of what's wrong. Because most of the three-ways, more than 50% of the three-ways don't even register with our company. More than 50% when you take them to a three-way. So something's wrong. I'll tell you what's wrong. It's the dialogue. It's the stance. It's the position you take as a director and maybe as the person who introduced them. So you have to not be so excited just because you have it. Look, you're probably going to have to do 4 or 5 director calls before that person enters into the company effectively. Maybe they'll register. If you're really good, maybe they'll all register. 90% of them should register if we have the right person, if we decide that. And we're going to show you how to have the right person, how to determine whether this person should be registered with us or not. We're not to take the stance in convincing. As the director, we're trying to decide whether we're going to direct that person to the registration. And I would assume, Mark, that most of them should be directed to the registration if they've gotten that far. But if they got that far to a director call because you are so excited about this person and you don't have them look at enough information and you take them into a 3-way, you can bet on it, they're not coming in. So that's why we have, and I think right now have the best 2 funnels to introduce people to our company. Wouldn't you agree, Mark? These 2 new funnels that Lloyd and Jennifer basically created, I think they're wonderful. I mean,
yes, that's all I use these days.
Yep, me too. You just did all. If they look at 3 minutes on either one of those new websites, if they look at those and say, "Wow, I want to know more," and fill that out. That's all you need. You don't need to be, going anywhere else to get them over to a director. You can go to live presentations whenever you want, but I would never in a million years send them to a presentation or to a website, have them fill it out on a capture page, and then get back with them and say, well, the next step is to get you over to another person who explains this whole thing. See, it's kind of backwards when you do that. They've already have an interest. It's almost like somebody walked into your shoe store and the shoe fits and they like it. And now you say, well, let's bring out some more. You really want these? Well, that's good. And you're really interested in these. Well, why don't I go back and show you some more and confuse you a little bit more? Now, nothing wrong with variety, nothing wrong with looking at a number of options. But when a person is ready to register and you believe that this person is the right person, they can go to these private receptions. They can go to other opportunity meetings, webinars, other phone calls, other videos when they register with the company. And by the dialogue we're going to show you, you shouldn't have any problem with getting them over to that information. So those cardinal rules, the 3 things, know your goals or your must-haves during that conversation. That's number 1. Number 2, be able to walk away from the table, to be able to say goodbye when you know it's not right. And number 3, never celebrate. Never celebrate this negotiation, this deal, this, potential prospect until they're there. Until you know that they are solid, that they really believe in what we're doing. All right. So next thing I do want to say is this, Mark, and it's about leaders. Leaders, let's ask people to participate right now. What do you think? Type in there. It takes a little while for us to see this. Why don't you type in what you think a leader's job is? In the meantime, I'm going to go over the dialogue. What do you think a leader's job is in this industry? What do you think that is? What is a leader's job? So let's let that happen, and let's talk about this. Let's talk about this 3-way call. And here's the principles of this. Not the cardinal rules, but these are the sections, the proper way to make it happen. When you have decided that you are going to move someone over to a director, they filled out some information. Maybe they went to a private webinar. Maybe they went to a private reception. Maybe they did that. Somehow, some way, you introduced them, but now it's time to bring them over to a director. There are many ways to introduce people. You could take them to that private gold reception. You could do that. You could bring them to a website. You don't have to do all of it before you take them to a director. You just have to see, does this person have any excitement in them? Are they, do they want to work with us? And then let's see if we want to work with them. And let's kind of negotiate that when we get there. Here's what we want. Here's what you want. Let's answer your questions. Let's get our questions answered. If the answers are right, let's plug into either part-time or full-time, right? That's what the negotiation is about. It's about, are you getting what you want? Am I getting what I want? And can we meet in the middle? So when a person finds someone who wants to that you want to bring to a director, you have to introduce them properly. And they had to have been somewhere and know a little bit about our company. So the dialogue sounds like this. Bob, this is Mark. Mark is one of the directors and trainers in our company. He's had great success teaching people how to manage a business from home throughout the years. Now, you can adjust that to the person that you are directing to. Maybe the person hasn't had great success directing people. So you change the dialogue a little bit. I know in Mark's case, that's true. So when I bring someone to Mark, that's the dialogue. And then that's it. I'm not going to sit there and tell you that Mark is a deacon in his church. He's a wonderful guy. Has all this experience in the financial world. It's enough to say that Mark is one of the trainers, one of the leaders of our company. That's enough to say. He's had great success teaching people how to manage a business from home. Why do you need anything other than that, Mark? Why would I want to say anything more? They'll find out who Mark is. And then it's Mark, this is Bob, this is Tom, this is Mary, this is Susan, whomever that is. Susan has looked at such and such of information. She's been to a PGR, she's been somewhere. I believe that we have a match, Mark, and I thought you might have some questions for Susan. That takes roughly 1 minute to do. We don't have time for anything else. Now, some of you may disagree. Maybe there's some leaders on here who disagree with that. Go look at your numbers and see what happens, how long you do that, how long it's been since, how many people, what percentage do you actually get registered for your people? Or if you're sitting there saying, I always bring things to directors and it doesn't seem to go that way. They talk about all this other stuff. I mean, I know you've experienced that. I have. Until I learned from the best of the best that that's not what you do. So when I say, Mark, I thought you might have some questions for Susan, what that does is puts this dialogue into the hands of Mark, the control of Mark at this stage. Why? Because we're trying to find out. You already found out, as the person who brought him to Mark, you already found out that you thought we have a match. You've already gotten some of the information. You've had dialogue. They went to a thing. You found out on a scale of 1 to 10 what their interest level was. Maybe you found out what they did, how long they've been doing it. But Mark hasn't. Mark needs to know this information now. So Mark will say, hello, Susan. Nice to meet you. Susan, let me ask you a quick question. What is it that Joe said that caused us to get together? In other words, what do you know about our company so far? Mark has to know that. And this goes back to these cardinal rules, right back to that. What is it? In that first rule, you must have this information, right? What is the prospect? No. So you ask that question in that manner. What is it that Joe said? Because in other words, what do you know about our company? Let them talk. They're going to tell you what they saw, what they know, if anything, what they remember. And we know right away, okay, how much information do they have to make a decision here? And they answer it and they say this, I went to this webinar, I saw this, I met with, I watched the video. Okay, great. Sounds like you have a little bit of information for it. Okay, so now let me ask you this. And I know Joe might have asked you this. I'm not sure if he did, but I'm going to ask you again. I need to get up to speed. What is it that you currently do? And then they answer. Let them talk. Let them feel free to talk. Then ask them after you listen and say, okay, you don't have to get in a whole bit of dialogue because they said they worked in a shoe store that you're going to say, yeah, well, my brother-in-law did and I used to, and it's really wonderful. And, and then I found out that and start talking. It's not your job to do the talking at this point. It's the director's job to gather information. What is it that they do? You'll get an idea. You might have somebody say, well, I haven't been doing anything for 5 years. I've been on unemployment. Well, red flag, right? Maybe we got to find out why. How long that's been going on. So we find out that they've been working somewhere. Okay, well, how long have you been doing that? Well, 20 years, 10 years, 2 months, who knows what that's going to be. Listen to them. Let them talk. Let them feel as though it's open channel here that they can say things about themselves. And then the question now comes up. Well, Susan, let me ask you this. Where do you see yourself in the next? In other words, if the next 5 years look like the last 5 years, do you see yourself getting ahead or behind? Why ask that question? Why ask that question? Well, here's the answer to that. You need to know their ambition. Without all this dialogue, you need to get them to answer that one question. Are they a pessimist? Do they see doom in the future? Or do they see themselves with enthusiasm doing what it takes to get the job done? You can tell that within minutes. That's the purpose of that question. Now, at that point, let them talk. I was here, I was there, but I see the future. I really want to get ahead. You might have a really good feeling for this person. The qualifications to decide to go forward are honest, ambitious, and work well with others, right? That's what we're really looking for, those three qualities. Honest, ambitious, work well with others. There's the ambition question. Where do you see yourself? And if the next 5 look like the last 5, you see yourself getting ahead or behind. There it is. You can't tell the honesty part yet, honestly. Can't do that. Don't know if they work well with others. They may sound really good. You ever meet somebody who it's wonderful for a month? Next thing you know they have an attitude problem. You know that they have an anger management problem. You can't tell that till you put them on the field with the shoulder pads and helmet, as Art used to say. Put them on there. We'll find out. But if you have ambition, you have a start, and you have to ask that question. At this point, you want to say, well, let me ask you this. Almost a kind of finable question before we get to your questions. Have you ever felt like that you weren't paid what you were worth? In other words, you should have been paid more for your efforts. Ever happened to you? Why do you want to ask that? Because we're going to tell them how you get paid here. We don't need to go through comp plans, downlines, dual systems, unilevel payouts. We don't need to do that here. We have videos for that. This is not our job as a director to discuss and to explain compensation plans. Not our job. Now, again, some of you might think that is. Well, then you'll be spending 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes on a phone to find out the person's not even going to come with you. Remember, we're looking for people who will follow, right? That's one of the qualifications is will they follow you? And guess what? If they register, they should be following. And guess what the follow part is? Over to a webinar, over to a video that explains compensation. Then get back with questions. Not now, Because when someone is going to say, well, no, because most people will say, no, you know what? I've always felt in a lot of my companies that I should have been paid more than I was for my efforts. In other words, the guy next to me was doing a lot less work and getting paid more than I was. If you can pull that out of them to find out, now you can tell them, well, I'll tell you what, it's really different in our company. I want you to know in our company, you get paid in direct proportion to the effort you put forth. In other words, if you work hard, you're probably going to make a lot of money if you do the right things and you follow. Do a little bit, probably make a little money. And if you don't work at all, you're not going to make any money in our company. That's only fair, isn't it? Just like you told me when that person was making more money than you doing half the job. And we've all experienced that in our lifetime. We've seen that happen. We've complained about it. But we need to tell them in a short sentence or two that we get paid here in direct proportion to the effort we put forth. Now, without all the explanation that I just did, that dialogue takes roughly 3 to 4 minutes. And finally, what you're going to say is, okay, after they explain that, say, yes, I really, I see how you get paid here, and here's all the things that I just answered. Here's the next question. This is the final question, basically. Okay, Bob, so it does sound like we have a match, as Joe said, or Susan. It sounds like we have a match. Joe thought we did. It looks like we also did. But let me ask you this. With a little coaching, training, and a lot of support, can you see yourself doing what it takes to be successful and learning how to manage a business with our company? When they answer yes, that says they're going to register. Most of the people say yes. That is time to direct them to a registration. That's what the director does. He finds out that those pieces of information and then says, let's move you over here and get you registered, because Susan, the only way we're going to find out whether we really do have a match is to lock arms together for a period of time and see where we are. We can look at this a little later. We can decide whether we're really right for each other. If we are, we continue forward. If we're not, we could shake hands and wish each other well. Does that sound fair, Susan? It does. Okay, well, that's what we need to do. So, Joe, I want you to get Susan registered with our company, and I want you to get her into the training program. We're going to be in a little management training program here. We're going to show you how our company operates and how we work here at this company. Now, Mary or Susan, do you have any questions for me? And guess what? At that period of time, you're probably going to have very, very, very few questions. Most of the time they say, well, not really. I guess I'll learn that over here. And yep. And if they say, can you explain more about the compensation? I'd love to do that for you. And in fact, I'm going to do that for you. We have a phenomenal video that Joe's going to send you to. When you're done with that, give me a call back and let's answer your questions. Is there another question for me, Mayor? Now, in order to be able to do that as a director, you have to know the principles of the phone call, how to avoid the gaps, how to assume that what you just said to them resonated, and now you move to the next one. The only way to learn all this is to get in what we call a networking communication class. Learn how to do those things. Train your mind to think. That's what Einstein said. It's not the learning of facts. It's not what education is. It's the training of the mind to think. So with that, Mark, let me turn this over to you. Hopefully we got something out of this today. And I don't see the answer to that. Yes, Shirley Pitts. Good leader has to listen to the prospect. They do. Guide prospects to what she wants. True. How do we not get a bunch of answers here? Let me give you the answer to it. A leader's job is to serve. Serve. That's what leaders do. They're not slaves. I didn't say that. They serve their people. They do the best that they can to help their people move forward. That doesn't mean do the work for them, but they are at service. They are in your service. They should be working for you. Your upline should be working for you, along with you, but their job is to serve. If you are a party who is calling your upline, getting stuff and wanting information, they should be serving you and helping you, not by sitting for an hour explaining a comp plan, but by guiding you to the comp plan, then getting back with questions. And if you can't answer them as a director or as an upline, then you get them to somebody who can. So Mark, let me turn it over to you. We're at the bottom of the hour. And
Okay, Joe, thanks. Great information. You know, you've often heard us say time and time again, terminology and perception, it has to make sense. That's the key when you're on a director's call, is having the proper terminology. And I find if you have the proper terminology, you won't get a lot of questions. As a matter of fact, you'll get a more excited person because they'll start to feel that, well, you know what? It doesn't sound like I'm going to be in this by myself. Sounds like I'm going to get help. And that's been a problem in this industry. People bring in a lot of people. They don't give them any help. They don't get, as you just said, Joe, as leaders, they don't get the right service. They don't get the right answers. Therefore, they remain in the 95%. Now, here's one other thing before we close. It doesn't start because you got them registered. In other words, that's when it starts. Once you get them registered, that's when the work starts. So you have to be ready to introduce them to the system that they're going to use, introduce them to where they can get the proper terminology, a la communication class. What a lot of people like to do is right away try to get them to buy a package. Let me tell you, people want to feel comfortable and they follow people with courage. If they think is all that you want to do is get them to spend their money, you're going to lose them. So keep that in mind. And if you follow, that's why we have a system. We have an entire system. We have an educational vault in the Tools Rock back office. We have everything that you need with those 2 new funnels. It's been made even easier. It's just that all we have to do is go to work, put it in practice, and your business will start growing. So with that being said.
Hey, Mark, one more thing I want to bring up. We have a leader in this company who is, I mean, this is a leader. This is a guy, a being of service. I'm not going to tell you who it is right now. And I've known him for a while. He's actually been through the class. I've actually met him in person recently. And he's actually bringing his entire team. Let me tell you something. This is a seasoned pro who has been through more educational classes from the gurus of this industry than anybody I know. He's bringing teams of people to take the class together so that they can properly communicate, that he can get his team in the same direction. We have 2 new people that just took the class the other day, just completed it, who are right now, I have this one person, I wish he was on the call to talk, that just took the class. The day he finished the second class, Mark, the second part 2 of the class, he was making phone calls, so excited, making appointments. Same thing with this other person. Never was successful making appointments. And all of a sudden, not only is she making appointments with people she doesn't know, but people that she knows that turned her down in the past now are wanting to know what she's doing. How is that happening? Come listen next week. Listen to their testimonials, which are going to go up soon, and see what made the difference for them. And this happens to everybody that goes through that class. But I'm really excited about the leader who's putting the groups together and coming in and getting discounts for it, putting them together, and then they're taking the class together. And that way they can all get together afterwards and go share the information, communicate, and work together to get the dialogue we just talked about down properly. So that's pretty exciting, Mark. Anyway, here we go.
Okay, everyone. Make it a great day. Peace and blessings to you. We will be back here again at 12 noon on next Tuesday on the Breakfast Club with some of those testimonials and examples. And it works. If you put it to work, it works. Remember, terminology and perception, it has to make sense. Peace and blessings, everyone. Go out and make it a great day. Make it a great rest of the week. Grow your business. Grow with your business. Work with your people. Be of service to your people. That's how you're going to grow your business. Make it a great day, everybody. This is Mark Stevens for our host, Joe Shute. Make it a great day and week. See you next week on the Breakfast Club.